Where's that coming from?
I'm in Raven. Raven, this is Black. I'm in Raven. Blackbird. I'm in Raven. Raven, this is Black.
Sounds like a recording.
Blackbird calling Bowers.
Repeating across all frequencies.
I'm in Raven. Raven, this is Blackbird. Blackbird to Raven. Blackbird calling Bowers.
I've been monitoring radio chatter.
Raven, this is Blackbird.
Just in case I hear something about us or one of our targets. Mostly it's just been random shit, you know, dead air.
I'm in Raven.
You know what this is?
This is Blackbird.
Yeah. I'm Raven.
Raven, this is Blackbird. You out there, Frankie?
Who is that?
It's Billy Russo. We served together. He's a friend.
Blackbird to Raven. Blackbird.
Does
Blackbird to Raven.
she know you're alive?
I don't think so.
I'm in Raven.
You see, that sounds to me like he does. Frank, do we need to worry about this?
Just told you he's my friend, didn't I just say that?
What kind of friend?
Hey everybody, welcome to Panels to Pixels. This is episode number 6. We're continuing our discussion about the Netflix show The Punisher, doing episode 6 called Judas Goat. Tonight we have Steve Brown again, and thank you for coming along, Steve.
Thank you. I love it. I love it.
So this episode seemed to have a lot of callbacks, a lot of dream sequences, a lot going on between Curtis and Billy and Madani, and there was like so much going on. A lot of interesting scenes, to say the least, but you know, I'm sure you have a few ideas. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, a lot of stuff this episode, and I think I've said this before, but this really felt like if this was a regular network kind of TV show, this felt like it could have been the mid-season finale, because we got a lot of things happened that are like an almost, they could have stopped the episode right then and been like to be continued, you know, at all these different spots in the episode, which I thought was kind of interesting and kind of an interesting editing move on their part, with this being episode 6 and it being a 13 episode season. It's not really the middle, but it's kind of the middle. So it was really good though.
Yeah. Well, you could say that this is like the mid-season for the fact that it is in the middle, because there's only how many episodes? 9?
13, I think. 13.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Still a little bit short and shy from the other Netflix shows that were going on, like Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. Usually they ran to like 16 episodes from what I recall. So, but yeah, but you could say that definitely is like a mid-season finale or mid-season episode. So, like you were saying, like we were both saying, is that a lot was going on. Basically, it's centered around a lot about Madani and Bill, and then snuck off to Frank and Micro, and during like Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's an interesting, you know, it starts with this kind of drink, because we know the last episode ended with Micro dragging Frank out of the woods and putting him in the van, and I think Frank acknowledges that he did something good. I think he says something like that, "Good job, CIA man," or "Good job, agent," or something like that, pulling him out of the field there and getting him in the van. And then as this episode starts, we do get this dream sequence, and we know it's a dream sequence because we see Frank's wife pretty quick into it, and and it has that kind of, I think the dream sequences, and I could be, maybe my vision is just not as good, but it seems like they do put some kind of a filter over the lens or do something with the digital. I'm assuming it's digital, that it's not film. They do something with it to make it look a little bit different than the rest of the series. It's a little bit brighter, but it's a little bit fuzzier at the same time. Not out of focus, but just a little fuzzy to me.
Yeah, like they put a stocking over it.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know if they're doing that old school kind of stuff, or if they have a digital filter they can put on there. And so we see them enjoying this wonderful kind of Thanksgiving dinner, and then these armed men come into the room, and we see Frank is tied to the chair, and they begin shooting everybody except Frank. And I got a screen grab of. They do a shot of this shelf where there's a bunch of games, like family type board games, and I thought it was funny. One of them was Steve, the home game or the home edition, something like that. That I thought was pretty cool. Gave myself a little Easter egg on that one.
Yeah, a lot of callbacks in that with those little games too. Maybe they're trying to, sometimes screenwriters or people who are part of like set decoration will put stuff in there that would tie it to not just the show but something else. So
yeah.
when you said Steve, I'm thinking Steve Rogers.
Right.
And it's like, things like that.
Could have been, could be anything. It's just some of those names, and I don't have them in front of me right now. One of them was like Mom, Don't. Wait a minute, I'm going to pull it up so I can look at it. One of them was like Personal Space. How will you retain yours? And then one of them is like Don't Break the Water. And remember, Micro fell into the water when he was shot, so maybe that's a bit of a callback there. There's they don't look like they're real games, though. They definitely look like they were kind of mock-ups of something. So I'd be interested to do some research, maybe, or somebody wants to do some research and find out about those games. What if there was something significant about those games?
Yeah, it definitely does question a lot. But then again, these are things that they usually bring up on deleted scenes or behind the scenes and stuff like that. I don't know if you noticed, but Netflix has been releasing their shows on Blu-ray more and more now. It took them almost 2 years for them to put Daredevil Season 1 on Blu-ray. And then lately I just found Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, so I had to pick those up. But I have a funny feeling that that's their new thing. It's like they want to break in to make more money on this market.
Right. They want to have that hard media as well as the streaming media, I think. So.
Well, that's how they started out.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember, again, we were talking before about, one of the things that was it 9/11 or was it one of the times I was deployed, I had one of their movies was sent to me on disc. And so it sat for 6 months until 6 or 7 months until I came home. And I had no way to tell somebody that, hey, can you go get my mail and send back this Netflix disc? And in fact, this was back when they kept your credit card on file. And I think I got charged $70 or something like that for this movie. And now they worked it out. I'm not slamming Netflix because they worked it out. Once I did get back to the States and got everything figured out, I emailed them and said, hey, I've been deployed with active duty military. Can we do something about this charge? And they're like, send us back the disc. And so I sent them back the disc and they reversed the charge. But it was kind of a funny thing. And I can't remember what movie it was. It was like Seven Samurai or something like that. It was a movie that I really wanted to watch, but of course I got sent overseas before I could.
Yeah. Well, they've actually been pretty good about that. But the funny thing is that they would charge you $70, but usually it's per month.
Yeah.
While you were gone, maybe $10 a month. And the funny thing is, the cost of the DVD would still be $10.
Yeah.
Back
yeah,
in the
it
day,
was.
what was this being charged the old VHS rentals when they used to sell those for $80 or $100.
Yeah. That's what this was. This wasn't the monthly charge. This was because this was back in 2001, 2002. It was really before we had the mass producing of DVDs. Now a movie comes out and 6 months later they mass produce a bunch of DVDs. But back then, and I'm sure we talked enough our ages. I remember back in the 80s when you had to wait a year literally 12 months or more for a movie to leave the theater, and then you could rent it on video, and then you still had to wait another 3 to 6 months before the video store might sell it to you as a used copy.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't until the mid 90s to late 90s that you started seeing mass producing of VHS tapes and movies, and then DVDs broke in, and finally, probably the early 2000s, mid 2000s is when you really started to see this mass production of DVDs coming out of movies, and people starting to build their library of movies. But I digress. We've lost our focus.
Stay focused.
Yes. So we open up with this dream sequence, and as that dream sequence closes out, we see Micro has come to Curtis and is needing Curtis to help him fix Frank up, because Micro knows that Curtis was a medic, and so he brings him back to the hideout to do some surgery on Frank. And I thought that was interesting that I think this is the first time that Micro and Curtis have actually met. And so he comes to the door, and really all Micro says is, Frank needs your help.
Well,
and
actually, the first time they met was when he gave Curtis the warning.
You're right. Okay.
But he's actually meeting him and talking to him and fessing up that, Frank is alive, and they're actually working together, which is really cool. Yeah.
Okay. So he brings him back to the hideout, and they do their surgery. Then we get to see a little bit of Russo and Madani and how their relationship, and how they're in bed together. And now this is the next morning after the second night. She says something like 2 nights in a row or something like that. And he says, well, you can't blame the alcohol this time, which I thought was another interesting comment with all the stuff about sexual harassment and things that have been in the news and lately. But and
it's a role reversal too.
It is. It definitely is, because he's kind of the one who's taken aback at her aloofness.
Yeah. She was, taking this as casual, and he was playing more of the sensitive and being
She gets on her phone, and he wants to serious talk about these files that she's got. And she's kind of on her phone, just kind of distracted, going, "No, you're not getting a key." And so she deepens into exactly where he's going, I think, very, very quickly into the conversation. She says, "You're not going to get a key. You're not going to," kind of in a way she's saying, "I'm not going to let you in." And he says, "Well, you're keeping secrets." And she says, "I'm Homeland Security. Of course I'm keeping secrets." So. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, and then, it continues on. You get into more about Lewis.
Yes, you get into more about Lewis and O'Connor. And I was thinking more today as I went back over. I didn't rewatch the episode today, but I was going back over and over it in my mind. And that actor who plays O'Connor does a really good job of making us not know exactly how bad O'Connor is. And I don't mean bad as in evil. I mean bad just as in that he's not a good guy. And I don't know if they're trying to stereotype that kind of conspiracy theory, conservative type of person, but I think he does a really good job of at first making us question, well, is this guy really just an embittered veteran, or is there something deeper? Is there even a psychosis in this guy? As we're going to learn, there's a psychosis with Lewis, but and then we find out that he lied about his medals, that he's lied about his service, that everything, his whole persona almost is a lie, and that's kind of. I'm not really sure where the show was going, was trying to go with that, or they were just using him to show us Lewis's descent. What do you think?
I agree. It's kind of strange, but it's kind of his perception of Lewis's descent. You know, while watching him, it's him watching that happen. Which is, yeah, I agree.
And that's pretty much as the episode progresses. We, like I said, we get a lot of things that kind of close out that you could almost. I think there's probably 2 or 3 points in the episode where they could almost have ended it and on a to be continued. And we might get into more of this with our top 5 when we get to that, because there's 2 or 3 instances until we get to the actual end of the episode and the big reveal at the end of the episode that it actually ends and they could have thrown up a to be continued.
Okay, cool. So we should actually hit that top 5.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So my top 5, starting at 5, would be the dream sequence with Frank. In Frank's mind, everyone he gets close to winds up dead, or, there's a fear of everything that's going around him of anybody who gets close. So obviously, at that dinner table, everybody is shot. So, and it's a constant ringing in Frank's, mind. So that was an interesting take.
Yeah, I like. There was something else in that dream sequence that I didn't notice before or didn't think about, was the fact that it's actually, we have a different look at it, because whereas in the earlier dream sequences that we saw with Frank and his wife, we find out that at the end of it, we find out that Frank blames himself for his wife's death, to the point where the episode that we discussed first, where in the dream he takes off the mask and it's him who has shot his wife. Whereas in this dream sequence, he's not the attacker, but he's helpless. He's tied to that chair and he's helpless to do anything, and it's almost like they don't even attack him. Like you would think that would be part of the dream, would be them coming after him, but they don't even do that. So we see that not only does he blame himself for these deaths, he feels that he's helpless to protect them, but it's almost like he keeps escaping. So it may be some of a survivor's kind of guilt as well.
Yeah, definitely. I would see it that way. Plus, the attackers are the ones that are doing it, just like you said. And then he feels like he's the one that's causing this, because every time he gets close to somebody, those people are going after the people he cares about. So
Absolutely.
And then, like you said, he feels helpless, and that's why he's the only one left alive sitting there in every dream sequence, or this dream sequence in particular.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool.
So my number 5 is the surgery, that whole surgery scene. That there's even kind of this show does a good job of balancing the comedy with these dramatic kind of traumatizing things that are happening. And that quote that Curtis says when Micro says, "Are you just going to pull it out?" And Curtis is like, "No, I'll do more damage if I pull it out. The only way out is through." And then he has to cut that slice into Frank so that he can push the arrow all the way through. And you see Micro kind of like, we're seeing Micro kind of losing his lunch a little bit. He doesn't actually, but we're getting to see more and more of Micro, that he's not as stalwart as Frank is. That may be the wrong word that I'm thinking of, but that he's not seen as much. He doesn't have the same experiences that Frank has seen. So every time he goes into a new experience, like when they go to the car chop shop and he sees the dead body of the guy in the chair, and he's like, "Did you do that?" And Frank's like, "No, they did that." And then he goes, "Well, did you do that?" And Frank's like, "Yeah, I did that." But that whole sequence of him and Curtis kind of saying, "No, I need your help. Do this, do that," and then we got to cauterize the wound, and finally ending up with Micro going, "Okay, are we done now? You want some coffee?"
Yeah, like anybody normally would who's not used to that.
Yeah, exactly. So, what was your number 4?
My number 4 would be, Billy and Madani in the bed, and
Yeah.
how Bill can't trust Madani even after sex, but just that whole change and and the sexes and how it winds
Normally.
up like those one night stands, or even just like just taking something casually. It's a reversal of roles, and it's like Billy's like kind of tough in general, but to see him like be a little bit sensitive. And then her shrugging it off, going, "Yeah, well, like you said before, yeah, you're not getting a key."
Right. Yeah. It's an interesting. It is a role reversal too from what we've seen from him, because remember, there's that scene with him and Frank when Frank's talking about his wife, and he says, "Well, Russo, you need to do that. You need to settle down." And he's like, "Oh, and I would deprive all the women of my whatever, and so we know that he's been kind of that player kind of guy, but here with Madani, it almost seems like he thought there might be something more there, and I don't know how true that is, though, because at the same time, I think it's kind of telling that he says to her she can't lie, and we know by the end of the episode or later on that he's kind of lying about what's going on as well. So they're really using each other, and he, like you said, he gets that role reversal that he's able to kind of be taken aback by it and play the sensitive. I'm reminded that there's a scene in the movie Serenity where the bad guy faces the captain of the Firefly, and he says if I give you money, you'll claim umbrage and take the higher road. Whereas if I attack you, you'll do this. And it's kind of like Billy's weighing out his options. What can I do here? Okay, she's being kind of aloof, so I can be sensitive here and play that kind of card. Maybe I'm not sure if that's where they were going with that, or I like the idea of the role reversal, the idea that he's got more invested in this relationship than she does.
Yeah, well, I think if you look at where Billy is at now, he's working for a company, and he settled himself in after the war or being from overseas, and all that battle. So now he's trying to settle himself down. So even though he's still being a little bit twisted in his own way, he's still trying to act like have a normal lifestyle, like what he saw Frank have when they were together and deployed.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That was my view on it. But
okay. Very good. Very good.
What was your number 4?
Mine was Madani's investigative powers when she's in the woods there. It's the typical kind of almost like that police detective scene with a murder scene where she sees the aftermath of this confrontation, and she knows exactly what happened, even to the point where when her partner says, well, they attacked a special forces soldier on his ground, and she corrects him and goes, no, 2. There were 2 of them here because somebody dragged his body out. So I really like that, and she really walks through the whole scene of what happened just in that short glance, or that short look that she had of the whole scene. She's looking at the trees and how they're shot apart. She's looking at the casings. She's looking at the blood spatter and all that. And so her investigative powers were really interesting to see those at work.
Oh, cool. Awesome. My number 3, well, Frank and Micro getting closer to during Thanksgiving, the trade-off of how they celebrated.
Yeah.
That was kind of humorous to listen to, but it's like, he goes, oh, did the old lady cook your, dinner? He goes, no, it was half. It was like we were a team, and she would do this, and I would do that, and then, and then Frank would go on about his, obviously, and then he was useless, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it was an interesting thing because it's almost like Frank's trying to search for something to say that he did, but he really didn't do much, because he just kind of goes, well, she did all this stuff, and then the grandmother would come in with the meatballs and there was always meat there and everything, and so it's an interesting kind of back and forth between them about what it was, and him and Frank doesn't really say if they just had family or what it was, but Micro goes, oh, it was a big thing. We'd have family, extended family. Everybody would be together. Everybody would come to us, and we were kind of the central focus. That was kind of interesting too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
Okay.
Number 3?
Yes, I think my number 3, it kind of goes along with the investigative powers of Madani when she's talking to her partner, but it's also just the fact that she basically reveals to the world that Frank is alive without realizing it, even though she tells him to kind of keep it quiet, but she tells him to take the blood and get the DNA processed, and he comes back with the fact that, oh, it is Frank's DNA. So now we have the lab techs, we have the people that process those reports. They all know that Frank Castle is alive because they've seen those reports. And then he makes that joke about where do you find dead Marines? And he goes, he's not on Facebook or Tinder. I checked. So I thought that was pretty funny that he makes that kind of side joke there.
Yeah.
But doesn't include Grinder like we talked about before. Are we to your number 2?
Yeah. Well, Curtis bailing out Lewis, and then Bill talking to Curtis.
Yeah, that whole thing was interesting too, as him revealing O'Connor's deception, and the fact that Curtis got the information, and I don't think it's as accessible as what I don't, and maybe in that universe it is, but it's not that accessible to just anybody. You have to know a social security number. You have to know who to call and to get their DD-214. The DD-214 is the form you get when you are discharged from the military, and it lists all of your medals and all of your locations where you served are usually all on that piece of paper. And so you can tell that he got that information about O'Connor somehow. Now, I maybe through the veterans group, if O'Connor gave his real social security number, he could have gotten that and then passed it on to Lewis. But even when Lewis goes and confronts O'Connor about it, O'Connor says, well, where did you get that? You got that off the internet? Well, you know, the Jews control the internet. And so we start to see more of his racism and more of his kind of twisted view of the world come out.
Oh yeah, and it is a little deception too of like him never serving, and you and I talked about this before, but you know, it's the fact that he actually put in and all that to me is, you know, still no.
It's still worth a level of respect. Now, what he did was still wrong. I mean, it's still stolen glory and things like that.
Correct.
But it's still just the fact that he did something. And I saw a statistic years ago that I always find interesting, that if you take the population of the United States and the population of those who served, it's like 1 or 2%.
Yeah.
Of the entire population has served, and that kind of blew my mind. The fact that many people owe that few people what the way they live, and I don't want to get political in it, but
well, yeah, honestly, anybody who even just, you know, you got those guys who serve partially.
Yeah.
You know, they did their, you know, they would go in, do their time, and then they would train, and then they would be deployed out for X amount for whatever tour, and then come back and then work a regular job.
Yeah.
And, you know, you got to give those people respect, too.
Exactly.
My friend Don did that,
Mm-hmm.
but he wound up making a career out of it. And, you know, I respect him even more now. He's made that his life, but now he still has a family and everything. He got married, had kids. He's got his own thing, even while still being, making that his work. But like you said, there's only like a certain percentage of those people that do go out there in America. And then, mind you, you have other countries out there that require you to do that as part of being a citizen in that country.
Yeah.
Like, in England, you're required at a certain point to do X amount for military services, I believe. And then there are other countries too.
Right. Right.
But with us, it's one of those where you have that choice. Well, unless you get drafted, but we haven't seen that in how many years?
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
But the fact is that it's you got to give those people respect out there, honestly.
Yeah.
But
very good.
We're on 2?
My number 2, and I was just looking back over my notes. I think my number 2 would be Curtis and his goat story. And when I first heard that the fact that they gave him a goat to train to do his medical training on, I kind of just shrugged it off and didn't think about it. But I did some Google research last week and discovered that it was up until about 2013, I think. Did I put the date in my notes? I didn't, but it was around 2013, I think, that the U.S. Army or the Department of Defense actually did stop live tissue testing. Live tissue training, is what they called it, where they actually had goats and they would give goats to these medical trainees, and then they would, basically wound and do different things to the goats in order to train these interns and these guys that were going to be field medics on how to treat wounds and how to keep somebody alive. And I thought that was interesting that they actually did that. But yeah, so that would be my number 2, just that story, and then finding out that that's actually is true that they did that.
Yeah, that would keep all those people that are against animal cruelty. But at least they stopped that in 2013. Yeah, they stopped it. And all that.
I don't know. I'm back and forth about it myself, because I'm sure if I was a soldier who'd been wounded on the field of battle, I'd be very glad to know that the guy who's teaching me knows how to
do something
something like that right on a live moving kind of thing. But at the same time, I feel it's still cruel to the animal to do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, it would be understanding if it was towards the end of the animal's life and they were dying,
right?
And then they would have to do something like that just to test it. But to bring healthy ones out there, yeah,
exactly.
Honestly, it's like we.
So where are we at? Are we at your number 1?
Yeah,
okay.
We're actually at number 1. That was fast.
Yeah.
Bill constantly trying to reach Frank on the CB, with the Blackbird to Raven, and you actually brought this up and you told me what it was, and it was it was pretty much like from First Blood.
Right, the movie First Blood, right.
Yeah, and, Raven being Frank and Blackbird being,
Russo,
yeah. Yeah,
it's interesting too that scene in the scene in First Blood with Trotman calling out to Rambo that way. He's doing it in order they're trying to get a response from Rambo so they can triangulate his position so they can attack him. And it's kind of the same thing. Russo is trying to bring Frank out into the light. And in both cases, it basically works. They do track down Rambo from that radio transmission, and Frank does finally. We don't hear it on screen or see the scene on screen, but Micro does make that mention to him. He says, do you trust this guy? And Frank says, yes, I trust him. And so Micro says, well, maybe you should answer him. And then the next thing we see him meeting with Frank and setting up this meeting at the wharf, him telling Frank, well, you need to just come to the pier tonight, the wharf. I'll get you out of the country. I'll get you a new identity. I'll get you a passport, and I'll get you doing. To me, it sounds like he's offering Frank a position with Anvil to be a mercenary, basically is what he's doing. And so that leads right to my number one, which is the big reveal at the end as we see that wharf scene where Frank doesn't show up.
Yep.
But who is there? Rollins is there in the SUV, and Russo gets in, and we see Rollins, and Russo says he's not coming. Huh. And so it led me to a question that I think is pretty easy to answer. That was a setup. That was Russo was actually setting him up Frank up to be killed. Yep. On that wharf. I can only assume because that's what Rollins maybe at least captured. Maybe all Rollins wanted to do was capture him to torture him and find out what he knows or who he told. And Frank rightly doesn't show up. And I'm scratching my head now because I didn't rewatch the episode. What was Frank doing that he didn't go there?
I forgot.
Was he just with Micro, or I think he was just maybe he was just with Micro and
I thought it was his wife that he was with.
Yes,
wife.
That's right. He went to meet and he met the wife when she's had too much to drink.
Yes.
Right, and she says it's late at night and I'm letting a man in my home, and that's it. That's where he was at. So, and I guess seeing her convinces him to not leave the country and to go back to continue to help Micro out. Okay.
Yeah. So that was pretty
good.
Cool.
Yeah. As far as notes go, the little altercation between O'Connor and Lewis, I don't think either one of us mentioned that today, but that altercation in O'Connor's house,
yes.
It seems like when Lewis walks into the house, you can see him kind of flexing his fists and kind of rubbing his knuckles, and he had definitely planned on doing some damage, I think, to
he did
O'Connor.
A lot of damage.
Yeah, he ended up doing a lot more damage. I think there's a point in that fight when he probably could have claimed some level of self-defense, but that when he just goes crazy and just continues stabbing, that's
yeah, that was pure blind rage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's somebody who with what he was going through, and then his convictions taking over, has gone over the edge. That's something that is sad to see.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see anybody like that, but I've known people that were in military and have seen major combat and were scarred.
Yeah.
So, and I actually had to talk to somebody because, where I work, the guy was coming in and he was putting his gun in the locker, and I'm like, dude, you can't do that. Put that in your lockbox in your car. I had to go tell him to do that, and it was kind of like when he goes, oh, I just came from the range. I'm like, all right, put your jacket on, put your holster inside, and go back outside. Please do that. It's not good. You can't have it on company property. I don't want to see you get in trouble. He goes, oh, you're going to get me in trouble? I'm like, no, I respect what you've done for this country, and I respect that you like to continue to use it, but please go out.
You can't. Yeah. Well, no, and I'm not I carry every day. I conceal carry every day, and the place I work, in fact, because we have a child care in the building, they like the fact that I'm there because they know, and we've had some people come in. I praise the Lord, I've never had to do anything. But we have had people come in who we've had to call the cops to come get them, or we've had people come in who have been belligerent and irate, and so there are times we had just had an incident a few months last year, about 6 months ago, I think, where the cops were chasing a couple of guys who had been involved in an armed robbery, and they came onto our property, and they were on the back property of our building. And the cops were out there chasing them, and so they had the child care. All the kids were huddled up in a room in protection. It happened to be a day that I wasn't working, so I got a little bit of ribbing about that. The one day when we've got cops and bad guys running around, you're not here. So
I have a license too, which is concealed carry. But the thing is like I said, I'm not a big huge fan of a gun, and the reasons why I got I got my father's guns because when he passed away, but it's like I don't take it out that often. It's very rare when I do, and it's usually just going to the gun range. But I would keep it in my car in the lockbox. I wouldn't have it on me.
Yeah,
but
I guess my point of saying all that was I hear the state that I live in. If a business owner is allowed to put up a sign to say they don't want it in their, they don't want you to carry in their facility, I usually choose not to patron those stores if they don't want me as a patron in there. And if there's something happens and I need to go to those places, depending on what I'm able to, if I'm able to leave it in my car, I will do that, because I want to respect that business owner, the choice, but I also still want to protect myself. So if it's like the 7-Eleven that I'm just running in to use the ATM, and that's a place that I know bad things happen sometimes at the 7-Eleven. Yeah. Well, I just kind of walk past their sign, and they don't know that I have it because it's concealed. So
and you're licensed, and you're allowed to.
Exactly.
Well,
that sign, and the sign is just a suggestion, unless they're a federally protected or state protected.
Which I highly doubt that a 7-Eleven.
No, 7-Eleven isn't. Federal buildings, state buildings, Capitol buildings, schools, those kind of places are protected by law. So I respect that. So
where you live, the laws are actually a bit not as lenient. In New York, they are.
Ooh,
yeah. They're more restrictive, and even in Connecticut's even worse after Sandy Hook and everything, and after that devastation. And I feel bad for that. The anniversary came up and everything else. So sad.
On another note, moving on with notes, I just had a quick one. I think we talked a little bit about this before. If you watch the scene where Russo meets with Madani, another spot on the wharf, on the water there, that's kind of interesting. I know it's New York City, but I didn't realize there were that many places that were on the river. But he meets with Madani, and his car has suicide doors, has those doors that open backwards. I thought that was kind of interesting that I noted that. It's an interesting choice for that character to have that kind of a car. But that's another one of those interesting scenes too between the two of them, that he says something like, I like this. I like her. I like you being direct with me and being honest. But this is a clandestine. I didn't think a clandestine. What did he say? A clandestine meeting would include just us talking to each other.
It's pretty funny how you bring up the whole suicide doors things. I have a Honda Element, and I get yelled at by a lot of my friends. Are like, or if I went out with this one woman lady a long time ago, and she goes, "Great, you have suicide doors." I'm like, I said, "Yeah, but I have this," and it was like a thing to knock out the window. And I come
right.
She goes, "You also have a hunting knife in the back too. Should I be worried?" I'm like, "No." I said, "That's just I said, "There's no law against that in New York State to carry, like to have like a regular hunting knife within the proper inches of what it is and everything."
Well, that's good to know.
But
did you?
No, it made me laugh, and I laugh when people like, oh God.
Did you have any notes? Anything outside of your top 5 that we haven't brought up?
Not really. No, I brought up everything, and when you brought up the idea of the whole First Blood thing, that it just brought a lot of memories of watching that movie, and then. And of course, the book when I read it years later when I was in high school. I saw First Blood on VHS because my uncle was one of those guys who used to get all the movies, and he'd have a copy, and then we go to his house and watch it on VHS. Yeah. And you're talking like in the early 80s, like 80, 81 or whatever when they first came out.
Yeah. I remember being in high school. the same kind of thing. I had one of the guys that I kind of ran around with who wanted to be a Green Beret, and he had that whole speech at the end that Sylvester Stallone gives. He had that memorized, and he would quote that very often. That whole thing. I can't even get a job parking cars. That kind of thing. So it's brings back a lot of memories when I hear that and start to think about that kind of stuff. So
yeah, especially since they changed the ending to that movie in comparison to the book.
From the book, which is interesting. Again, this is pop culture-ish, not really Punisher, but David Morrell, who wrote the book First Blood, actually wrote the novelization of
the movie.
The First Blood, the movie, but he also wrote the novelization of the second movie. Not the novel for it, but like the somebody else wrote the screenplay. He wrote, when they novelized it, he wrote the book. And I remember reading his prologue to that, and he said and I hadn't read First Blood when I saw the movie and read the second book. In his prologue, he mentions the fact that in his book, Rambo dies at the end, but the reason he came back and wanted to write the novelization of the second movie was because he wanted the character to be captured properly. And so he agreed to write that novelization. And I actually have several of his books on my bookshelf that he wrote years later. And I'm trying to find one now, but I can't. And I actually kept up and read a couple more of his books that are really good. So
that's cool. Yeah. Like I said, this what we podcast about might be predominantly about the comics turned to Netflix shows, movies, cartoons, whatever. But everything is pop culture now.
Exactly.
Everything is related in some way. I have to laugh when I watch The Flash and they talk about Marvel characters and stuff like that. They actually mention Spider-Man and stuff. I'm like, what the?
Nice.
Yeah, and then you talk about how it's like, the guy got sick when Micro got sick and everything. So you look like, it's like there was in the most recent Flash, they had Plastic Man.
Nice. Well, it's like you brought up in the episode, the third episode that we talked about, and I haven't seen Spider-Man Homecoming, but you said there's a scene in there where the guy's talking about being the guy in the chair.
Yep.
And Micro was talking about that same thing with Frank, is that every missile's got to have a guidance system.
Exactly. Yeah, because everything comes around, but that's all from the same universe in itself. But
right.
The fact that they actually bring that up, though, in these movies, in this show, about, it's like they need that one person.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at other shows that were similarly written. You always had the Scooby Gang for, like, Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Flash has that. Arrow has its own universe. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., if you watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they have pretty much the same thing. But, and then you'll see that kind of like a consistent thing. But it's something that everybody relates to. I don't know if they'll ever break away from that format of writing, but it seems to be the format of writing that works.
Yeah, the other thing I like about that format is, and I don't know exactly what the makeup of the teams are on Flash and Arrow, but I seem to recall a little bit that there's only one or two that actually have superpowers. The rest are just regular humans who have been swept up into their kind of their world. Yeah. Like the guy in the chair. And one of my favorite scenes, excuse me, one of my favorite scenes from Buffy the Vampire Slayer was in, I think it's the 5th season, when they're fighting Glory, and the British people are there and they're telling Buffy that they're going to stop helping her, and she says, well, no, you're going to start helping me because I'm the superhero, basically, and you guys are just the watchers. And she says, and this is my team. And they're like, well, and she goes through her team, and she says a werewolf, 1,000-year-old demon, 2 powerful witches, and then she gets to Xander, and the guy says, "Well, Xander, he's just a normal guy," and she goes, "The boy," or he goes in the boy. He says, "What about the boy?" And she says, "Well, the boy has clocked more field time than any of you put together," and and he's part of the unit. And I remember there was probably one of my favorite quotes was Willow says something like, "That's Riley speak," and Xander goes, "I've clocked field time," So I love that fact that they surround them with just normal people.
Yeah,
and that's what I always looked for in those kind of shows is who where would I fit in if I was part of this kind of thing, and would I be I would be just the regular guy who's just kind of there,
Exactly.
So really good. So last night was the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And we saw the trailer for Infinity War. Did you see that trailer?
I kind of was in online watching and between, but I caught parts of it, and I saw what Captain America has some weird Wakandan shield now.
Yeah. I liked it. It looks like they're bringing everybody from the whole entire MCU just about, or at least the movie MCU is being brought into it. The Guardians of the Galaxy are going to be there. Thor is there. And I guess Thor has an eye patch now.
Yeah.
Who is he?
If Thor Ragnarok comes out tomorrow on Blu-ray, but it's already on digital download, so you could get it on iTunes and all.
I may have to go pick it up. And see how that happened. I heard it was really good. I never got to see it in the theater.
I got it on iTunes, and then I ordered my Steelbook. I'm picking that up tomorrow.
Nice.
No, actually Wednesday when I go back to work.
Nice. I have the John Wick Steelbooks. So
those are actually really good shows.
I like those movies.
I love those movies, and I don't know if we spoke about this last time, but since we're on The Punisher now, we're talking about it. But John Bernthal was in Baby Driver.
Yes, he was,
and that was a really, really good. That movie blew me away. Everybody kept talking about it, and I just didn't go see it in a theater, and then I was able to watch it online, and and I'm like, wow, this is actually a really good movie, and I like the soundtrack.
Yeah,
he had John Hamm in there, and who else?
Kevin Spacey, Elia Gonzalez.
Jamie Foxx was in there too.
Jamie Foxx is in there. Yeah. It's really good. We buddy of mine and I went and saw it at the theater, and both came out, and I think we actually went back and saw it again in the theater. It's one of the few movies I've recently gone back to see twice in the theater, and now that I have it on disc, I think I've watched it about 3 times. It's the only problem I have with that movie is it seems like he gets a pretty light sentence for all the. Yes, he finally brought the bad guy in, but man, he did a lot of stuff in that.
Oh, a lot of damage in that town.
And he was an accessory to quite a bit. But hey, it's a movie, and that's what it's really all about. But yeah, Baby Driver, I've got the soundtrack for it as well, and I listened to it.
Oh, I didn't get the soundtrack, but I like the idea of the music within it. It just kind of reminded me of Shoot 'Em Up.
Mm-hmm. Another good one. Paul Giamatti.
Yeah, and I always actually liked that movie a lot. A lot of people don't ever recall that or even want to even revisit that movie.
Oh, I like it. I've watched it. I haven't watched it recently, but I've got it on disc, and I've watched it a couple of times. Like I said, that's the scenes with Paul Giamatti are pretty funny when he's talking about the whole turn signal thing, or is it Clive Owen who was talking about that? One of them was talking about putting your turn signal on, and all you got to do is move your hand just a little bit, and that turns your turn signal on. And the scene at the end when Clive Owen sets up all the guns to all the traps with the guns is really good.
Yeah, there's so many movies out there and so many things. It's pretty funny. It's like you can always relate to one to the other. But it just reminded me of that because it was pretty much like watching an action-packed, music video in a sense.
Yeah.
And I
It
really
was
like
very-
how they worked it out. Very well.
It was
written.
very, very reminiscent of our '80s movies that I've joked about. That a lot of '80s movies are just music videos, really long music videos. You know, because there's so much music in them. If you go back to Rocky III, if you go back to a lot of these '80s movies, there's just so much music in them. It's almost like it's just one long music video.
Yeah, but not in a sense where in this case it was him playing the music and it's what he's listening to.
Right.
With Shoot 'Em Up, it pretty much was like set up almost like an '80s film, action film with music. So
Yeah.
think about what if they actually did that with Predator throughout the whole movie? You know?
Yeah, there is some movies where it doesn't work. There is some.
Commando.
Yeah. But you've got Roadhouse. That like Roadhouse was definitely the soundtrack had part of that with it, and there's a few. Like I said, Rocky III is one that Rocky III and Rocky IV, really I think are the two that stand out to me the most. The Karate Kid movies, there's several long scenes in those that are just a long music video. They can almost take the music video and shoot it. Risky Business. I remember hearing Bob Seger complain about the fact that there was too much of Tom Cruise dancing around in his music video. Yeah. So, but really good. And the Black Panther movie looks like it's going to be pretty good. I've heard some good talk about it.
Oh yeah,
excited.
Definitely. And then a lot of people are asking too, because in our group when we talk about the Zedheads group, somebody was talking about, hey, what's this Castle Rock thing? And
yeah, I didn't realize that was coming out.
Yeah, Mark Bernardin was the writer on that.
Okay.
And it just centralizes all King's books into one town. So you could have Pennywise talking to the guy from Stand, Flag.
Now is that going to be an Amazon show or where is that?
I think it's on one of the cable affiliates. I'm not sure. I got to look more into that, but I caught a glimpse of it. I went to the bathroom, came out, and it was towards the end of it. I'm like, oh darn, I gotta watch that later. So
yeah,
I never really did, but it was interesting. I'm like, oh, finally they're. I was wondering when this was coming out because I knew about this like months ago, like 8 months ago.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about it. Also, they released that Westworld season 2 is April.
Yeah,
I saw that in the trailer. I don't know if that's been said before.
Yeah, but it's so funny though. I remember when that came out originally, because we don't have like HBO or Cinemax or anything like that here. We don't subscribe to that, but we had it for a week, and I think I've watched the first 2 episodes, and that's how I got hooked onto Westworld.
Oh, nice.
I wound up, being able to get it on Blu-ray with, the digital copy and everything. So
I kind of want to buy those discs just to see the extras that are on it.
Oh yeah. I haven't even gotten through all of them, but the music in it is really cool. I'm a big music buff in that sense, but they revised certain songs in it to be more of a westerny.
Right. Yeah. No. I watched. I went ahead and got. It's kind of funny actually. Not the same kind of thing. I went ahead and added HBO to my cable package to watch Game of Thrones, and I really only made it through the first about 4 seasons of Game of Thrones, but I've watched all of Westworld, and I'm rewatching Westworld with the other podcast that is being done on Westworld from the Podcastic network. So
with Jason and Karen's husband. Yeah.
Yes.
I haven't gotten to really listen to that yet. I really want to.
It's good.
Yeah, I actually brought it up to Jason because being Westworld the way it was based off of, I don't know if it was a book. I think Michael Crichton.
It was a Michael Crichton book. Yeah, I've never read it. No, I don't think it was a book. I think he just wrote the screenplay for it.
And he was in it. He was actually in it.
Was he?
Yeah, he was in the original movie. He was in...
I did not know that.
Yeah, he played the reporter in the very beginning. And yeah, they the movie came out, and then they did Future World, and then they actually did a TV pilot for 1980 or 81, I think. and I seen that on YouTube, and I was like, oh wow! I'm like,
I've got both Westworld and Future World on Blu-ray. I think I know I've got Westworld on Blu-ray, and I'm not sure if the Future World is Blu-ray or just DVD. But yeah, I remember that movie as a kid watching it and just being fascinated by it and by everything about it, and that was really good.
that was always played on, you know, in New York. They had this thing on Sundays. They would play older movies. It would always be like, or they would have a marathon of like Planet of the Apes and things like that when I was like a little kid. And then Westworld would be one of those movies, and I always watched it. My father liked it because, well, obviously it was like more of like a Western, but modern. And then he had Yul Brynner as, you know, the bad guy, you know. And then oddly enough, in the actual show itself, if you watch the show, you could see when they go into where they keep the older robots.
There's one down there. Yeah.
Yep, that's him. They have him in the back and as a silhouette, and it's a callback to that. I try to explain to Jason. I said he might want to revisit the movie and watch it and do a review on the off time for that, but
I think they did do one originally when or did they talked about it.
Him and Karen, I think, or him and David did it on like the first 2 or 3 episodes, and then they went back to their regular routine for Walking Dead cast.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Him and Karen did one where they talked about the original movie. Right.
They did?
I think so.
I thought it was about the original.
I know they did the first 2 episodes, but I thought maybe they didn't. Maybe they never did. Maybe they just talked about doing it so much that I just assumed it was already. He and David on the podcast have talked about going back and doing a review of the original Westworld movie, and because there's certain elements of the timeline that you can kind of think that the movie is part of this universe that the TV show is in.
Yeah.
The way they talk about there being an accident, but it also could be what the whole first season is about as well. So it's the show plays a lot with the time element of it. So if you ever do get to watch all of it, there's a lot of back and forth in different time periods. I don't want to spoil too much for people listening on that. If they haven't watched Westworld,
it's
the
just
TV
something
show.
it's like, I'm sure you and I both agree. We recommend it to anybody out there who's interested in these.
Oh, absolutely. Things. And I love it. It's a great. I've watched the whole first season, and like I said, I'm rewatching it now. With that.
And then you were talking about Black Panther, and that looks like it's going to blow everything away. It looks like hopefully it opens up more doors.
Yeah.
You know, that to me, it's like, I never thought of him as a major character to come out, but now it's like, honestly, we need more African-American style, heroes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We got Black Lightning on TV, and if we got Black Panther, he's not African, but, he comes from Wakanda and all that. But,
yeah,
honestly, more Black superheroes.
Yeah.
I'm hoping, I read something about it, but there was an old Marvel comic where you had 2 characters. One was a girl and a Cloak and Dagger.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and Cloak was a black man, too.
Mm-hmm.
But also we have Spawn coming out eventually.
Yeah, and I saw the screen. I think you did, or somebody reposted the pictures of Brie Larson from the Captain Marvel movie that's going to be coming out. They're doing the female Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
So there's
that looks
a lot
good
of
too.
A lot of diversity. I'm excited for the Han Solo movie on Memorial Day coming out. That's going to be exciting to see.
Yeah, I didn't get to see that one. I missed out on that one.
Oh, okay. The trailer was really good. It shows it. They didn't put Donald Glover a lot in the trailer, but he definitely looks good as a young kind of Lando Calrissian. It's definitely. I read an article today where they were talking about the fact that the director or the writer, one of them, has said we're going to get the explanation of where his name comes from. That Han Solo's name there's a reason for it. It's not just his name.
Oh wow!
It's either a pseudonym or it's a handle that he was given, and we're going to learn that in the movie is what they said. So I'm excited for it. I really I like that character, and I'm excited to see what they do with it, and if they're able to do more of these Star Wars stories. I like as much as people may not like the fact that Disney bought it. Disney really has taken it, and they're gonna
make it their own.
Yeah, well, they're gonna ride that horse until it dies.
Oh, you know,
they're gonna get as much money as they can out of it.
Oh, they're buying everything out, so they already bought Marvel, Star Wars, the Muppets. Yeah. What else?
Exactly. So.
And now
Very
WB,
excited.
I think too. Or
Any?
Brothers.
Oh, did they?
Yeah,
that'll be interesting.
Well, they bought out a portion of Warner Brothers, a lot of their catalog, but
okay,
that included the X-Men.
So, oh wow, yeah, I remember we talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm curious of when and how they would actually bring that into the universe. Are they going to rewrite all these characters as new? They'll probably just introduce them in as part of another movie. Like, they'll do, like, Miss Marvel, and then they'll have Rogue come out and maybe take some of her powers or something. I don't know. Because that's what happened in the original comic books. Rogue winds up sucking out Miss Marvel's powers. That's why she's got... she has extreme strength, she could fly, and she's... You can't, penetrate her skin.
Okay, yeah, I'll be honest, I haven't really kept up with the Marvel comics, even from when even from when I was a kid. It's been so long, and they've done so much with that X-Men universe that they almost would have to just start from scratch if they do bring them into Marvel, the current MCU. So
we could move on to other news, which I have. Being Walking Dead fans, we like Robert Kirkman's, main show, Walking Dead.
Yes.
And then he's actually coming out with a new comic. It's coming out, I think, this month or next month. It's called Oblivion Song. And it's a different take. And actually, it's funny, too, considering the Eagles have won and they are in Philadelphia. It's regarding a happening that happened in Philadelphia where an alien kind of dimension is part of Philadelphia, and that's what it's calling. It's like they call it the Oblivion or this area, and then you have somebody that goes in and takes whatever is from that area into his own, from what I've read. And it's like it's how they're able to control between both areas and then explore that other area that's been from that dimension area.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's something new. I recommend it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just picked up. I'm a big Iron Maiden fan, and I didn't realize they came out with their comic book finally. So,
oh wow!
So it's based on Eddie. I'm not thrilled with the writing as a fan, but it's based upon a video game that they put out for mobile devices. And it's pretty cool to see him in all these different guises from every album artwork. And, the artwork is really good. The writing, I'm not a fan of, but the fact that it is based upon that character, finally they actually have him come out.
Right.
After all these years, and it's something that I had stated a long time ago. But, I'm glad to see that came out. So, and then... the only other thing I had was, Stan Lee going into the hospital, but, supposedly he's doing well, and thank goodness.
Good. I had not heard about that one. I know we talked about what we want to see kind of coming in the future coming out, and I just remembered one that I've bought these for my Kindle Reader. Is there's a character, and I'm trying to remember if he was a Dark Horse character or if he was an Image. He was a First Comics character named Grimjack. Yep. And it was kind of a sci-fi I think I have a large run of that comic in a Foot Locker somewhere, bagged and boarded, and the moths have probably gotten to it at this point. But that's another great character in another world. You're talking about this Robert Kirkman's Oblivion song. It's very similar. It sounds very similar to the city that he lived in, that had all the different dimensions all kind of coming together in different spots, and you could cross one street where the law of physics would change, or you'd cross one street where magic worked, and then the next street where it didn't work, and things like that. That would be an interesting one if somebody could bring that into the movies and into this our technology that we have. It'd be an interesting story.
Well, I don't know. Did you pay attention to that book club thing for Annihilation?
I did, but it takes me a long time to read a book. Yeah, it took me about 8 months to read it. So
well, that I understand. That took me a long time when I was in high school. But no, that kind of reminds me of it and similarly, because they have to go to this area where it's wooded and everything else, and it's a different dimension.
Yeah,
it seems like it's something like that. I didn't read the book. I didn't listen to everybody's talking about the book, because eventually I will, because I want to see the movie.
Yeah, so. Yeah. I saw that, and I'm interested in reading that book, but I've got some other books now in my kind of my radar that I want to read and check out. There's an 80s movie that I just watched the other night called Diggstown with James Woods and Louis Gossett Jr., and it's based on a book. And I just recently bought that book from Amazon, but they only had it in hardcover, so that's being sent to me. I think that's going to be my next fiction read. Okay. It's an early 90s movie, kind of a boxing con movie, if people are interested in that kind of stuff, called Diggstown with James Woods and Louis Gossett Jr.
And that's this week's Panels to Pixels, and thank you. Everybody check out the Facebook page. We're on Facebook, and you could email us. The email is on a link in the Facebook page, I believe. So if not, you could email us at panels2pixels, the number 1, @gmail. And, I haven't got any mail, but I'll read it the next time. So thank you all for listening, and thank you, Steve, for being on.
Thank you once again.
No problem. Until next time, thank you.
Thank you.